Great. So it looks like we're coming up on the top of the hour here. I just want to thank all the students of NYU for joining. I'm really, really excited for this session tonight. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'm going to let Dr. Pezzolisi introduce himself. And just want to let you guys know that this is an Ask Me Anything session. So feel free to ask any question that comes to mind. Want to let you guys know that there is a question box on the bottom of your screen. Feel free to fill out that question box. I'm gonna try my best to get all of those questions to Dr. Pezzolisi and make sure that we answer all of them. I'm also gonna circle back to some of the questions that the students submitted beforehand. Just wanna let you all know that there were some amazing questions submitted. Once you signed up, you were able to submit some questions, and I'll be sure to circle back to some of those as well. So just want to let you guys know, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself and let Dr. Pezzolisi introduce himself. Want to thank you all for joining, and let's get it started. So my name is Miles Murphy. I am the Academic and Industry Relations Manager for Aspen Dental Management. Aspen Dental Management is the DSO organization that supports the over 850 Aspen dental practices nationwide. Everything from the support from a business standpoint, from a operations standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from technology, finances, everything that goes into owning your own private practice and being a practice owner. We provide that support here at Aspen Dental. And we're gonna also jump into what that looks like to be a owner of a practice in a bit. We're gonna ask that question to Dr. Pezzolisi, but without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and let him introduce himself, and I'll be happy to jump into some of these questions. Thank you all again, students of NYU, and I'm really, really excited for this session. So if you could go ahead and Doctor, introduce yourself, and it'll be great.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone. I obviously don't see all of you, but I'm sure there are a few of you out there at least. My name is Dr. Dennis Pezzolisi. I graduated Tufts Dental School in 1987, so I've been doing this for a significant amount of time. After graduating dental school, I did the GPR, and it was a prosthodontic GPR at New England Medical Center. And then after that, I was in group practice, which is another form of dental practice. It was a private group practice, meaning there was one dentist who owned it, and there was 3 of us working there. And I did that for a significant amount of time. I then went into my own private practice, which was fee-for-service with mostly cosmetic dentistry, more like a boutique type practice. I did that for a while. And then I was introduced to what we would call a DSO, or dental service organization dentistry, with another company. I enjoyed how that worked from a clinical / management program. And I thought that there might be a better one out there. And it's eventually how I ended up with Aspen in 2013. So I've actually been with Aspen as an owner. I joined in 2013 and became an owner in 2013. I partnered with another Aspen dentist. So without significant specifics, that's kind of like my dental career in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Pezzolisi, for your introduction. And I'll be happy to jump into some of these questions. So yeah, I mean, basically to piggyback on what you just said on being a practice owner, I know that as a student in dental school, that is something that's pretty much the ultimate goal for a lot of students. And that's something that I'm hearing throughout all of the student network, is they want to end up being a practice owner before it's all said and done. So if you can just kind of give us a brief overview of what that looks like being an owner, and how you was led to owning your own practice.
Okay. So I think, when I was going to school through the mid 80s, that was, as you said, Miles, that was the goal for most of us. We wanted to, at some point, own our own practice, or join a partner and own a practice. Maybe we, took over our relatives' practice, father, uncle, mother, aunt, whatever. But practice ownership in dentistry, I think, is is what most of us desire to do. The beauty of dentistry is you actually do not have to do that to enjoy the profession. I mean, you can be an associate, you can be a part-time dentist, you can, work for hospitals. There's a lot of different ways to practice your clinical skill as well as your educational knowledge. I decided to pursue private practice ownership because I wanted to be my own boss, basically, and that was the main reason why I got into it. It allowed me to kind of run the show the way I wanted to do it, and that's what brought me into private practice ownership. What I found over the years is that the way that these companies are structured, whether it be Aspen or Heartland or whatever, for the most part, you are your own boss. And the only difference is that where I used to have to spend my Sunday mornings and sometimes late nights putting the books together and doing health benefits and payroll and all that stuff as a business owner with no support system, my own advertising, so on and so forth, the DSOs handle that. So, we can get into a little bit more about some of the other benefits, non-benefits. And what I will tell you this is your dental career is not going to be short for most of you. If you love what you do, you're going to do it for a long time. And I've changed what I've done in my career a significant number of times, and I've adjuncted or added other things to it that keep me in the loop and keep my mind fresh. And, I've lectured, I've done the business side of dentistry. So you don't have to make your decision right away, but you should start to think about kind of where your head is at and then look at those options. And if it doesn't work for you after the first few years, guess what? You can change. That is one of the beauties of dentistry, because dentistry is dentistry. Our procedures may change a little bit, our materials may change a little bit, but what we do on a daily basis is we have to make people comfortable to get the treatment they need to be healthy. And that's going to be no matter where you work. If you're good at doing that, you're going to be successful where you work. So, that kind of touches upon a little bit why I did it.
Great, thank you, doctor. A question that just came in was, I know that you said you have that support with the DSO being owner. What does that look like for you? What does that support look like when you're partner with a DSO and you own your own practice?
Well, the way I put it, and the way that I see it, is your DSO would be your consultant, right? If you have a very successful, let's say a cosmetic practice or a large private practice that has 3 or 4 dentists working at it or whatever, if you have a large, successful, busy practice, more often than not, you've hired a consultant at some point. And what that consultant will do is they will bring you the tools you need to take some of what it takes to run that kind of a practice, which is significant amount of work, off your shoulders, right? So there's marketing. You have a special thing that you do, you have to market it. Or, people just don't walk down the street and look in your window and think, oh, he looks like he knows how to do a really good crown prep. That's not how it works. You have to market your skills. So there's marketing involved. There's HR involved. I don't have to tell you that in today's day and age, it's very important that you have HR covered. There's a lot of rules and regulations that you need to follow. The other thing is payroll. Payroll is not as simple as just giving someone a paycheck at the end of the day. There are taxes involved. There's all those types of things. So there's a lot of work above and beyond you throwing on your PPE that we have to wear now, going into the operatory, making your patient comfortable, doing your dentistry. There's a business side of things that consultants will help you find the people to do that for you, and you pay a fee for that. And the DSO, their job is to actually do that for you. So they're management organizations. They basically help you with the business side of dentistry.
Great. It's great to kind of get that insight from an owner who has been doing this for over 20 years now and have seen both sides of the spectrum when it comes to private versus DSO. We have a question that just came in. So do you think that private practice will still be possible for our generation of dentists What might that landscape look like for an NYU grad that graduates next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or 4 years from now? What does that private practice landscape look like?
Well, that's a great question. And I like the thought process behind that question because, you hear a lot of things out there and, obviously we're in the middle. Hopefully we're not in the middle. We're at the tail end of this pandemic, quite frankly. But, organized dentistry and group dentistry is definitely on the rise. I'm not going to say it's not. I'm in the process right now of doing some work in that area to see where things are going. There's always going to be private practice. There's always going to be in small towns across the U.S. and especially in inner cities, private dental offices. And there may be less of them percentage-wise, but they're always going to be there. And for those that want to go out into private practice and do that, my recommendation would be is you cannot just be regular. You have to work hard to make yourself stand out because your competition, if there are less of you, okay, your competition is stronger in that sense because, everyone's trying to be the best. When a dentist there's 10 of them on one street, sometimes a patient's going to pick you because you're convenient. And, that's going to go away because the easy pick of a dental office or a dentist is going to go more towards those groups and those organized dental, the dental organizations. The people that make themselves stand out, much like in, today and over the last 10 or 15 years, if you found a niche where you were actually a fee-for-service cosmetic boutique type practice and you were able to market yourself and you were good at what you did, then you stood out and people searched you out. That's going to be more and more and more. So it's going to separate. There's not going to be any of that middle of the road anymore. I think you're going to have your groups and you're going to have your really specific, high-end, strongly educated, doing everything you can to make your practice, stand out from everyone else's. That's the way that a lot of things are going to go, I think, in the medical field. You're going to have your more of your group type situations, and then you're going to have your private areas that stand out. Percentage wise, what I've been told is that right now, group dentistry, if you took all the dentists in the United States, it comes up to about 20-25%. It's probably going to be around 50% over the next 10 to 15 years. And there's a good possibility that that's going to level out at a certain point. And the reason why is unless things start to get a little more creative, and that usually takes a while, organized dentistry is not looking for the Manhattan practice on the 35th floor of 30 Rock. You know what I'm saying? And I'm guessing that 30 Rock has 30 something floors, but the bottom line is that that's not where a DSO is going to look. They're going to look for the guy who's out in the suburbs, who's built a nice $2-3 million practice, and they're going to go to him and say, hey, how would you like to, be part of the DSO? So the inner cities are going to have need for private practitioners, and the areas that are just out, in the middle of nowhere, very, very rural, you're going to have your hometown dentist who maybe he also, seconds as the mailman or the postmaster. And I went to school with a guy. He's in Millinocket, Maine. He's the dentist. He's the oral surgeon. He's the postmaster, and I think he's the selectman. So, that's not going to go away. So there is opportunity. It's going to dwindle a little bit, but it doesn't mean that if you want to be in private practice that it's not possible.
Great. Thank you, doctor, for that. So I want to dive into your experience a little bit here. We got a question that came up. You did mention that you have experience in prosthodontics. So how did you choose your focus in prosthodontics versus other specialty? What led you to that decision?
So when I was at Tufts, my first thought was I wanted to go into endo. And the more I thought about it, I said, the way things were changing in the 80s where you had the ability as a general dentist to actually do everything, which we do. General dentists can do everything if you get trained, especially nowadays. So I decided I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into one type of specialty, but I did want to learn how to do complex crown and bridge cases, full mouth rehabilitation, that type of thing. And so the residency that I picked, I just so happened to get matched to New England Medical Center. And I didn't know it was going to be a prosthodontic residency until I actually got in there. And then my mentor, the person who ran the residency, out of the 6 of us, 2 of us got to work with him and the other 4 got to work at a different clinic. We just basically did full mouth rehabilitation for a year. I mean, it was from soup to nuts, and also got to do some work with patients that had cancer that lost part of their jaw and their nasal cavity, things like that. So once I started doing that, I'm like, you know what, this is something I can definitely carry over into private practice. So I never went to prosto school, but I was doing full mouth rehab after residency. So that kind of sent me down that road a little bit. It wasn't by choice, it was more by accident, but I do a significant amount of crown and bridge in my Aspen practice compared to, some other offices. And I've also, I've always done full mouth rehabilitation. I do have a fellowship in that type of work through the Academy of Comprehensive Aesthetics, which involves aesthetics with full mouth rehabilitation. So I guess I enjoy crown and bridge, and I enjoy implant dentistry. So I've been doing a lot of that in the last 10 years or so.
Great. Thank you, doctor, for that. So this is a question that just came in. I know that we connected before the call and you actually let me know how this looks for you. So I just want you to reiterate it for the students on being an owner. You obviously let me know that you are an owner and you work a couple of days a week to doing dentistry, but you also have interests in other facets of dentistry. So what are some of those facets that you have interest in, and what does your typical week look like because of your eclectic interests?
Okay, so if we stick with just dentistry, I've always been intrigued with doing different things. So that's why I didn't limit myself to the practice of dentistry. I've been in a lot of different practices, and one of the things that keeps me going is changes. So I have recently gotten my dental MBA from Johns Hopkins Medical. I'm getting my mergers and acquisitions certificate from the New York Institute of Finance. I've done financial analysis paperwork with Columbia Business School. So I've been taking a lot of these courses that are usually 6 to 8 weeks long just to get a business background. My dental school roommate, interestingly enough, who's been a dear friend of mine now for 30 some odd years, actually 40 years, I think we figured out. He has a company called Connect the Dents that he does practice transitions, practice mergers and acquisitions for dental companies. Like if Henry Schein will want to buy, mom and pop scaler from New Hampshire or something like that. And so I wanted to try to I've been doing it for such a long period of time that I just wanted to kind of, be out of the operatory a little bit more. Dentistry has changed a lot, obviously, in the last 6 months when it comes to PPE. And for me to be able to do the kind of dentistry I want to do, long hours and working the amount of time I need to wear that type of equipment it's tiresome. And quite frankly, I just don't want to do it as much anymore. So I set myself up to do some other things on the business end. The beauty of dentistry, again, I'll go back to, I think in my original introduction, or maybe the first question, is you don't have to be chairside 40 hours a week to do things in dentistry, right? There are plenty of, and we'll use Aspen as an example. There are plenty of Aspen dental owners who don't practice. They just basically support their offices because they own multiple offices. There are some owners who only work a couple of days a week. There are some owners who like working 5 days a week. There are guys in private practice who only work a couple days a week and they hire an associate to work the other days and keep their practice going. So if you have interests outside of clinical dentistry, there's plenty of areas where you can go into. There are always dental companies looking for people to become their expert lecturer, things like that. I've done a significant amount of that in my career. You can start your own consulting business. Dentists like other dentists to help them. And so, I've also done that in my career. I teach leadership and team building as well as mission statement and vision building for dental practice. And I've been doing that for a while. So all these little things that kind of keep your mind going and, get you throughout the week, you can do that as a dentist. My typical week is I work Mondays 8 to 5. I work Tuesdays 8 to 1, and I work Wednesday 10 to 7. I don't work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and pretty soon I won't be working Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'll just be working Monday and Wednesday in my practice. And when those days that I have off, quote unquote, that's when I'm doing the other stuff. That's when I'm on LinkedIn, creating contacts. That's when I'm contacting dental offices that are interested in getting their practice evaluated just to kind of see what it's worth. That's when I might be, having our personal assistant get in contact with some of these smaller companies to discuss whether or not they'd want to get bought out by a larger dental company and putting those deals together. So I keep pretty busy. As I was telling Miles, the background you see is my front porch, and on the other side of the computer, I have a fridge and my guitar and my TV, and I like to enjoy a cigar every once in a while. So this is instead of man cave, I have a man porch because I like the outside better. And so, I spend a lot of time out here actually doing work. That's why I'm doing this here tonight. It's a gorgeous night here in Massachusetts, and I thought, why not? The better background, right? They probably don't even see the background. So,
Great. Like I told you beforehand, I envy your background. My background isn't as exciting as yours. But yeah. Thank you for giving us a brief synopsis on what your journey looks like and what your everyday looks like as an owner, and then diving into some of the other facets of dentistry as well. So yeah, I know that you just mentioned PPE, and this is going to transition to COVID a little bit and the pandemic that we're currently going through. So in your office specifically, because I know you are able to speak to that. So what are some of the precautionary measures that you're taking regarding the pandemic that we're currently going through when it comes to seeing patients and social distancing?
Okay, so every state's different. So we are following the Massachusetts Dental Society guidelines, which are in line with the ADA guidelines, which are in line with the CDC. And Massachusetts, the Dental Society here has done a really, really great job of giving us everything we needed to make sure that we were in line with all of that. And so, I mean, it's a laundry list. It's different now than it was in end of May when I reopened. I closed March 20th and reopened May 28th. It's different now than it was then. Then I was only open a couple hours a day. I limited the number of patients in the office to 3. And every appointment, they were spaced out so that we were basically in a 4-hour period of time, we might see maybe 6 or 7 patients total. They had to, whenever they came into the office, obviously they had to have their mask on. They actually needed to call us before they came into the office. They had their mask on. They needed to hand sanitize. We needed to get their temperature. We then brought them into their own room, so they weren't sitting in the waiting room. There were no chairs in my reception area anymore. We've actually brought them to their operatory, and we kept the operatories. I have 9 operatories in the practice that I own. And so what we did was we kind of spread them out so they were completely spread out. The cleaning of the operatories was different. The type of cavicide that we use is stronger. The wipe down was now 25 minutes. They now have told us it can be dropped down, but it was a 25-minute wipe down. So we kind of moved around. So throughout the day, we tried to only utilize the operatory once, which made it a lot easier for cleaning. And then, front desk had to have their mask on. We required everyone to come in with their clothes, but then change into what they were going to wear to work for that day, and then take those off, put it into a laundry basket, and put their other clothes back on. Obviously, we all had to go get fit tested for our N95 masks to make sure that they were working. And even though the majority of us, unless you have the perfect face for this mask, you're going to fail the test. But you put a level 2 underneath it, the N95 over it. You get plenty of what we're finding now, plenty of protection. We got our shields, we have our gowns, we were wearing booties at the time, we have our head thing. So basically, when I get ready for a procedure now, where I used to go in with my scrubs on, a mask, and my glasses, now I have, and obviously gloves, now I have booties, scrubs, disposable gown, N95 mask, my loops, a shield that goes over my loops, a thing that I wear on my head, and I actually double glove in case for some reason I have to change my gloves. I don't have to go into a drawer and open that drawer or whatever. So definitely much more cumbersome. The procedures take a little bit longer because of setup and takedown, but that all comes with, once you get used to it, then you figure out how to organize your day, and you figure out how to get from one room to another safely. And once you figure that out, it's just like any other dental practice. You realize that, okay, this is the way it's going to be now, and you figure out how to maximize it. So for me, doing this for 30 some odd years and doing that every single time I have to do an occlusal composite, don't want to do that anymore. So that's why I'm cutting back. And I love my patients, and there's certain types of dentistry that I love to do. I'm going to work with my associate to have her get better and better at some of the things that I don't want to do anymore. I brought in a surgeon and an endodontist into the practice to do most of my surgeries for me now. So what I do is what I love completely, and that fills up about 2 days. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, great. So I want to kind of piggyback on that a little bit regarding, you just mentioned you have a team of general dentists, or oral surgeons, and endodontists. What does being an owner and overseeing your practice, what does your typical staff look like, and what would the ideal staff look like in an office?
Okay. Well, it varies, and it depends on the type of office. I mean, if I go just generalizing, it depends on the dentist too. So there are some offices that want to be open from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. And I'm not talking just Aspen here. I'm doing every type of dental practice there is. To me, the ideal practice, and I'll use it from the standpoint of you're serving all your patients' needs, and you're sending very little out the door. You need to have a surgeon, especially if you don't pull teeth at all, you need to have a surgeon at least 2 days a month. If you're not doing implants, maybe you need a surgeon 3 days a month. So you need to have an oral surgeon in-house if you don't want to send stuff out. If you don't want to send out your root canals, you should have an endodontist. And if you do, like I do 95% of my root canals, but I need him for retreats, very difficult root canals, or very difficult patients. And without getting into the whole insurance thing, if a endodontist does a root canal on a patient that has a DMO insurance plan, they get $1,600. If I do the same root canal, same quality, same everything, they pay me $60. So I'm going to let the endodontist do that root canal. And again, we could spend a whole nother hour on the whole insurance thing. We'll try to stay away from that. For every dentist in a regular office, meaning a dental office where the dentist he's working out of 3 chairs, you need an assistant and a half to 2 assistants. I run with 3 assistants because I work out of, the way that Aspen is set up. We do a lot of removable prosthos, so we do a lot of dentures and partials. So we have 2 rooms dedicated to just that. So I have an assistant that kind of runs those 2 rooms. I have another assistant who's my lead, and she's with me on all my chairside procedures. And then there's a third assistant that helps the hygienist and does the new patient x-rays and those type of things. And, you know, does the scans for Invisalign. I also do Invisalign in the practice. So you need that. If there's 2 general dentists in the office and you both have a busy schedule, you might need a 4th assistant. Usually the surgeon and the endodontist will borrow one of my assistants and have one of their own come with them. And that's why on my specialty day, which is Thursdays, I really just go in and see new patients for half a day. I don't do any treatment because I want the specialist to have the use of all the operatories, especially now. As far as every Aspen office does have a lab tech. Most private practice won't have a lab tech. So we have a guy there who's actually there all day long, taking care of our removable prosthodontic stuff, dentures, partials. He does my wax ups for my big crown and bridge cases. So we do have a lab tech, and I have a hygienist and a half. So what they say is for every 1 dentist, you should have a hygienist and a half. It depends on your practice. Some practices have a very high percentage of recall patients. Some practices have a very high percentage of new patients that don't come back because they're emergency type patients. So you might get away with maybe a really busy hygienist. But if you're doing root planing and scaling and non-surgical perio procedures, you're going to need at least a hygienist and a half for every general dentist you have in there. And an assistant that can handle both your new patients and helping the hygienist, day time. So I gave you what my practice looks like, but hopefully a little bit of information on kind of how you would want to structure your practice down the road. And there are plenty of guys out there. My first private practice, it was myself, my wife, and my hygienist who doubled as the dental assistant because we were just starting out and we had, we were lucky to have 3 patients a day. And then that grew into a bigger practice over time. So.
Great. So I just want to let you all know that we're receiving some great questions regarding owning your own practice. And I think no other better man for the job than you to answer some of these questions. So I do want to dive into location because I think this is an important topic and there is something worth said about it because location is one of the main focal points for a lot of students, especially NYU. The dental school, they're the biggest dental school in their country, right? And they have students from all across the country, from different states. So why this location, doctor? Why did you decide you wanted to invest in this specific location?
Well, I grew up in Connecticut, and when I went to Tufts, I fell in love with Boston, and I like New York. The gentleman I was speaking about earlier, my dental school roommate, he's based out of New York City. He's on 85th and Columbus, up in Central Park West area, and I spend a lot of time going down there because we're working together. So I love New York City. I do like the ability to. So I should say this. You pick a location based on the other parts that you enjoy, right? So you can be successful as a dentist, if we're talking success in a monetary fashion, anywhere, as long as you figure out what demographic you're working with. So to me, if that's the case, then the other part of what's going to make you successful in life is if you're happy. And you need to live where you're going to be happy, right? So if your dream is to live on a beach, then don't start your practice in the middle of Nebraska. Not anything against Nebraska. I'm a Cornhuskers fan. I got no issues with them. But if your dream is to live by a beach, then get your Florida license and go practice in Florida. If your dream is to be in a metropolitan area, well, then you got some great ones. You got Chicago, you got New York, you got Boston, you got, Dallas, you have Miami. I mean, So you got LA, you have, you know, you have plenty of options. If you want to be the rural dentist that, you know, everyone knows and, you know, then you can be that too. But pick that because not only that that's the type of dentistry you want to practice, but because that's where you want to live. Because you don't want to be 15 years into your career and realize, or 20 years into your career and realize that, and it may change, that you can't just leave Massachusetts and practice in New York or Virginia or Hawaii or California without having to do some sort of exam. Luckily, the only state that still forces you to take the boards over again after 5 years is Florida. And, you know, at 30 some odd years, as much as I would love to have a nice house down on the beach in Florida, I am not taking the boards over again just to do that. So I would say that, and I love it up here in Boston. Again, I love the proximity to New York and all that. That's why I'm here. I would say, think about how you want to practice and also think about where you want to live and try to put those two together. And remember what I said initially. If it doesn't work out the first few years, you got plenty of time. You can always move and change. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, doctor. So I want to kind of dive into maybe some of the differences. You have 30 plus years of experience, so you know what the difference is between owning your own practice privately and then owning it through a dental services organization. What would you say is the biggest difference? And on both sides of the token, what would you say are the pros and cons with owning an own private practice and then owning a practice through a DSO? It can be any DSO in the country, just generally speaking.
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's easy for me to say that I enjoy how I'm set up now without having to deal with the side industry, meaning the business side, like I talked about, the HR and the marketing and all that. There was a time in my career, though, where, again, remember, I went into private practice because I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to be the one who told me what to do and decide what to do. And the biggest misnomer out there is that's not the case if you join a DSO. You have a lot more freedom than you might think you do with a DSO. I can tell you right now that I'm not forced to use a certain lab. I'm not limited in the materials that I use. I'm not limited in the procedures that I do. And as my consultant, remember we talked about that earlier, if I was working with Fortune Management, and Fortune Management came to my practice and showed me my P&L and said, you know, this is out of whack, I'd listen to them, correct? Because they know what they're talking about from a business standpoint. So the support, consultant type support, and I use that word because it, you know, it is what it is, really makes it beneficial to be part of a DSO. If you're someone who you want to run your dental office, you've had a dream about how it's going to be, then the benefit of owning your own practice is much better than being an associate somewhere, because then you get to design your practice the way you want. Pros and cons really depend on the individual. So if I were to sit here and give you pros and cons, they're going to be my pros and cons. And my pros and cons don't matter to each and every one of you that are sitting or listening out there. It's your fears of what it might be. I may be able to answer that question, but I can't give you the answer to what's right for you because I don't know what you're looking for. So I will tell you this, you know, and it all comes back to this. You have to decide how you want to practice. And then my advice would be do your due diligence and find out what it is about each option, whether it be in a hospital clinic, as an associate for someone who owns a practice, starting your own practice de novo from scratch, or going into a dental service organization. You have to find out the pros and cons that are pros and cons to you, because maybe some of my pros are your cons. and maybe some of your cons are my pro, you know what I'm saying? So the biggest fear is that you lose control of your practice, and it's not the case. My practice, my Aspen practice, and my practice in the initial DSO that I was part of, I ran it like a private practice. I set up my schedule the way I wanted it. I didn't have to answer to, well, how come you didn't do this amount this day? That's not how it works. Now, anyone that's practicing dentistry is going to want your practice to be successful from a profit standpoint. If you don't, then what you should do is go into healthcare, into a hospital, that type of thing. But if you want to have a successful practice from a financial standpoint, you're going to want people to give you advice on how to run your practice, right? Maybe you have too many. Maybe you don't need 4 assistants. Maybe you're paying your assistants way too much money based on the other assistants in the area. Maybe your advertising budget's too low. Maybe your advertising budget's too high. Maybe you can get a burr from this company that's just as good as the burr from that company, but this company only charges you 45 cents. The other company charges you 75 cents. Very, very minute details that if you want to sit down and do all that figuring on your own, then God bless you. But that figuring gets done out for you if you are part of a dental service organization, and whether it's Aspen or Heartland or whatever. I will tell you this, there must be some attraction to it, because the reason why it's becoming a higher percentage of how dentists practice is not because Aspen's building practices or Heartland's building practices all over the United States and putting dentists in them. It's because dentists are actually selling their practice to the DSOs to become part of that DSO, and the majority of them keep practicing in that practice. They just happen to be a DSO, and what they've done is they've maximized the buyout, or they've maximized the selling while they're still young, to be able to get the cash that they've built in their practice and still make a good living practicing dentistry. So there's an attraction there by guys who have built very successful dental practices to sell to a DSO. There's a reason for that. So you have to kind of take a look at that and say, here's a person who left dental school. They started a practice. They got that practice up to $3 million a year with a couple of associates or partners or whatever. And then they decide, let's see what our practice is worth. And a DSO comes and offers them not only to pay them and buy their practice from them, but also to keep them on as many years as they want at a specific salary. It's not a bad deal. So there's reasons for that. It's because they understand that, yes, as much as there are some things that they're not going to have complete control over, what they're giving up is well worth what they're getting back in return.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, doctor. So I want to shift gears a little bit here. Shift gears regarding your life as a dental student at Tufts. Just so you can kind of speak to the students a little bit and relate to the students that are on the call.
Yep.
So this is a question that came in, and this is something that I just connecting with all the students and having conversations with them is really, really important. So this is regarding mentorship.
Okay.
So was mentorship important to you when you were in dental school, and was it something that you were looking for upon graduation? And if it was, do you remember your first experience of mentorship upon graduating from dental school?
Mm-hmm. So I think mentorship is important. At Tufts, we had what was known as the Big Brother, Big Sister program, where you were matched with another dental student that was a year ahead of you, and their job basically was to kind of help you, try to mentor you, try to get you through. And then obviously as time went on, you then became the mentor of the younger students. And the other thing that I sought out when I was in dental school is I sought out specific faculty members that I had a good relationship with, a good bond. And I would pick their brain about a lot of different things. And they became mentors. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I tried to match with my residency program, and luckily I matched to the one I wanted, the wife of the guy who ran the program was also at Tufts the head of the removal prosto department, and she was a big mentor to me. So that was in dental school, and I think it's real important to kind of pick the brains of people that you trust, and that you kind of like what they're about, and find out what it is they're looking to do, and just have them kind of guide you along the way. Once I got out, of dental school, obviously the mentor that I had in the prosto program was very important. He really taught me. I mean, I still use tips and techniques from 1988 that he taught me and that I'm doing today. And he taught me a lot about the art in dentistry. And so that was a mentor. When I had my first job, there was a dentist that was in his 50s, and you come out of dental school, and you go one of two ways. You either think you know everything, or you're scared to death. I unfortunately was the guy who thought he knew everything, and this guy kind of really showed me that it was more important to show the patient that you care about them than how perfect your modified chamfered bevel crown prep was. Not that that's not important, but they have no idea. And so as long as you know your skills are there, you need to take the time to not push that on your patients, but to kind of let them know that you care about them. That was the biggest lesson he taught me, that you should be learning every day, every year of your life as a dentist, and B, just make sure your patients know that you care about them. As time went on, mentors became, they became people in different areas, whether it, leadership. I came across, I've read books, I've done things, and you develop mentors based on what your interests are. And so I've had a lot of different mentors along the year in that aspect of it, learning how to create mission statements and visions. And so, that's, that's kind of how it's gone throughout the years. I can say that one of my mentors was the person I partnered with when I first joined Aspen. He kind of taught me the way Aspen worked, and the way things went, and what I would, maybe want to tweak about what I was used to from the standpoint of how an Aspen dental practice runs. And it was important to know that. It didn't mean that I had to do everything that he showed me or taught me, but it gave me a good background and idea. So use your mentor as an informational person. Use your mentor as someone that can guide you, and always do what you feel is the right thing to do. So you got to kind of put those two things together.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually interesting question. You're 30 plus years in.
Mm-hmm.
You say, and this is a question that just came in from one of the students, and this is actually a question that I'm interested in learning a little bit more about you as well. What would you say 30 years into your career is what you enjoy the most about dentistry?
Wow. What I enjoy the most? I enjoy the most when you have a patient that comes in, and they've given up on their mouth, basically, and they come into you, and it's either someone in their life has told them they have to make a change, or they're just sick and tired of they're having their mouth sick and tired, or they're in extreme pain or whatever. And you can flip them. And flipping them means you can take them from someone who's scared to death, in pain, Lord knows how they're actually eating food properly. They can't enjoy what they eat. And you take that person and you turn them into a dental patient that, loves to come to the office, that keeps up with their recall appointments, that shows that smile everywhere, that, you've actually changed their life. That's the most enjoyable part of dentistry for me. That would be number one, 100%. That's the part that I'm going to miss the most. because obviously if I'm not doing clinical dentistry, that will be gone. I won't have that opportunity. And so hopefully I can garner some of that from some of the other things that I do. And then a close second was just working with your team and building a team and having all these individuals. Like in my office, it could be 12 at any given time, and having all these individuals that maybe some of them do the same job and maybe some of them don't do the same job, but getting them all to mold together so that when someone walks in the office, there's a sense or a feeling that they belong there. And it makes the patients comfortable. I'm proud to say that I have one of the best patient satisfaction ratings in the company. And I pride myself on that. So, you want to make your experience for the patients amazing. And that is as much to do with the people that are around you than yourself. So that would be a very close second.
Okay, great. Thank you, doctor. So this is a question that came in regarding work-life balance. I know that you're obviously a fun guy, right? So owning your own practice and being involved in other facets and sources of dentistry, how are you able to control your work, your professional career and your personal life, having such a busy schedule week in and week out? What is work-life balance important to you, and how are you able to control that?
Okay. Well, first off, it absolutely is. I will tell you this. You won't have a life if all you do is work. and I don't define life as work, right? So obviously my responsibilities fall in a lot of different areas. So I have the responsibility of my practice, my patients, my team. There's that responsibility. I have the responsibility of anything else I might be doing on the side from a work standpoint. And those responsibilities hold a certain percentage or amount. And maybe there's more hours spent doing those, but priority wise, if it comes to the health of my kids or what I need to do for them or anything like that, then work gets pushed aside. The balance is you need to work though to provide what you want to provide for your family. I mean, unless you hit the lottery and you don't have to ever work again, but you have to, that's where the balance is. So the balance is you have to love what you do. You have to enjoy it enough where it creates the resources to allow you to then have a life, which includes your family or hobbies or vacate or whatever, so that you can do those things. So the balance has to be, this provides for that. You have to enjoy this, but this takes priority. So for me, there have been times when it's been difficult. So, I spent a significant amount of time, about 12 years, raising my 3 kids on my own. So that was difficult because they were younger. And, I had to figure out a way where I could still work and then make sure they were properly cared for, whether it be at school or when they came home from school. But I also made sure that my personal time was limited so that I spent as much time as I possibly could with them because they only had one parent at the time. So there was a shift on when that goes. As time went on, obviously I was allowed to start to, from a standpoint of giving myself the time, to start to do some of the personal things that I enjoy. And so what I've done over the years is I've always made sure that my priority was my kids, my family. My work I had to have responsibility in my work to provide for them. But not ever once did I ever put work ahead. So what I mean by that, if I got a phone call in the middle of the day and I had to go pick my daughter up from school, and when I was I did not call the next door neighbor. I did not, call a family member, because my daughter needed to see me at the school. So I would cancel my day and I would go pick her up. It happened so infrequently that the small amount of strain you put on the fact that your patients have to reschedule their appointment is hundreds of times less than what you're showing your child. So you really have to understand that work should never take priority, but it's important, and it's for everyone. It's different. Again, not everyone out there is going to have to raise 3 kids on their own for 12 years, but at the same time, you get the sense that, okay, what is important. I went to every single event they had. So I moved my schedule around to fit their life. And I believe that it made a huge difference in who they became, as they're all now adults. So it's very important to have work-life balance. And there are plenty of books you can read and seminars. And I just think you got to just do what you feel right in your heart. And that'll usually guide you when it comes to those type of decisions.
Great. Thank you, Doctor, for that insight. So it looks like we're coming on the top of the hour here. We have 4 minutes remaining now. And this is a question that came in. I've been trying my best to get through all these questions. The students have been asking some amazing questions. I think it'll be great to end the session on this one. So putting yourself in a student's shoes, whether they're a D1, D2, D3, or D4.
Okay.
Going back to when you were a student at Tufts, whether they're considering the private practice route or the DSO route, whatever it is that their heart desires when it comes to dentistry, what would be your biggest piece of advice for a current dental school now in 2020?
My biggest piece of advice would be to learn a little bit of everything. Don't limit yourself unless you're absolutely positively set on becoming an oral surgeon or a periodontist because again, you can do all that stuff as a general dentist. So learn as much as possible. Get into the heads of the students that are above you. Get into the heads of the faculty members. Step outside of dentistry and start to take a look at what's going on in our world from a business standpoint. You'd be surprised how much it correlates to the practice of dentistry. And then be open-minded. Do not close the door to any opportunity that comes along. As a matter of fact, I'll compare it to this. You're coming out of dental school, maybe, and I think in New York, you do have to do a residency. I believe that's a requirement in New York. It should be a requirement everywhere, quite frankly, but you're ready to go out into the world. Think of it like this. While you're starting that residency, what you should be thinking about in your mind is like you were when you were a junior in high school. Start taking a look at all the different opportunities that are out there specifically and see kind of which ones attract you, much like you looked at a large school, a small school, a liberal arts school, a school in the suburbs, a school in the city, right? You looked at all different types of colleges. Look at everything with an open mind and then choose what feels right in your heart at that time. Because again, there are many of us out there who started at one university, ended up at another. The time to do it, though, is when you're younger. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one specific area or situation and think that's the only thing that's out there. Really just broaden your eyes and just take a look at everything and educate yourself on the outside business world. It's very important. You are going to be a business person, whether you go into a DSO or private practice. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you're not getting a ton of business education in dental school because it's just not time for it. And I get that. It's not a knock on the universities. You need to educate yourself. Even if it's just reading dental economics and then, supplement that with Fortune magazine or something like that. Read an article a night, just educate yourselves. And you'll find that you'll learn a lot more than you would think is related to what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pezzolisi, for taking the time out of your day and giving an insight and overview of your everyday life in dentistry to the NYU students and what it was like to be a student at Tufts up until now, owning your own practice. I just want to thank you for taking the time out. I want to thank the students at NYU for asking such amazing questions. If there's any follow-up questions that you guys have for me or Dr. Pezzolisi, please feel free to reach out to me at miles.murphy@aspendental.com. I will be happy to answer any questions that you have for me or Dr. Pezzolisi. And it looks like your porch went from light to dark here. I think this will be a great time to conclude.
Yeah, it is down.
I think this will be a good time to conclude the session. So I just want to thank you and the students again. And everybody have a great night. It's been fun. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.